I'm Margaret Hell for Infowars.com. Talk about scurrying around after Trump's speech. President Obama, is in Ontario today, and he's meeting with the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, and the Mexican President Nieto. And what are they talking about? They're talking about their bilateral relationship, their enhanced globalist union. Now, this is coming on the heels of a very historic speech, if you recall, that Donald Trump gave in Pennsylvania last night, talking about economic trade policy and how it's terrible for the American worker. Now, we're going to get to a very specific clip of that speech now. Take a listen.
Just as she's betrayed American workers for Wall Street and throughout her career, her whole career, she has betrayed the American worker. She's trying to put on a good front now. She will betray you again. Her career and her husband have signed so many disasters, and never, ever forget NAFTA. Just never, ever forget it, because you know what it's done, and I know what it's done. And in touring, I've seen the devastation that it's left behind.
Now, reports initially in the media saying that this meeting was in response to Brexit. But ironically, Trump gave this impressive historic trade speech last night talking about the joblessness of the American worker and what he's going to do when he becomes president, firstly gutting NAFTA. We heard him say that in the 7-point plan. Now, what this means is a candidate is setting the policy, setting the politics for a sitting president of the United States. Despite media reports saying that this is in response to Brexit, it doesn't take a genius to realize that Trump's trade policy has lit a fire under the president. He's going to solidify his NAFTA bros while he still can. Well, the president's trade meeting, it included a plea to all of the people of North America. This is what the leaders were asking. The leaders of the U.S., Mexico, and Canada, they say, be bold, look beyond the immediate problems of the present. Yeah, like the massive loss of jobs that people are experiencing in this country because of NAFTA. They want you to see far beyond that. Then they went on to stress how important global warming was and what they're going to do to tackle that. Now, media reports, they say that this was in response to Brexit, but Trump gave that historic speech less than 12 hours ago, and we saw our president scramble to make sure that his NAFTA bros, the globalists, stay in power, that the narrative stays the same, and oh yeah, it's all because of Brexit. It has nothing to do with Trump. Now, speaking of globalists that are very upset with Trump, igniting those angry nationalists, I want to take you to one in particular, James Traub, and he wrote this for Foreign Policy magazine. He originally writes for the New York Times. On occasion, he is an heir to the Bloomingdale chain, and this is what he had to say regarding Trump and the angry nationalists that he's incited. Traub urges the forces to keep out the nationalists. He's writing this from an elitist perspective. He says, did I say ignorant regarding those angry nationalists? Yes, I did. It's necessary to say people are deluded. And the task of leadership, i.e. the leaders, is to undelude them. Is that elitist? Maybe it is. Maybe we become so inclined to celebrate the authenticity of all personal conviction. And then he goes on and on and on, laying out the case for why it's good to be an elitist, that the leaders, the globalist movement, they've got to get control of this angry mob. Don't celebrate the individualism of people and their voice and their free expression. God forbid. We need to get a handle on this before it takes over and dissolves all of our globalist policies. That's what he's saying. He sounds very afraid to me, and it's echoing the same fear that the president expressed when he hopped on a plane this morning, scurried up to Canada to make sure that our trade deal with Canada and Mexico is still very much in place, towing that line. Well, as if we needed a lecture from James Traub over the lessons of history, over how Brexit was an utter repudiation of bankers and economists, an example of extremism gone mainstream. You know, some of us think that globalism is the extremism, and finally people are waking up. They understand what's happening. And Trump has made a very interesting case that NAFTA has not been good for the American worker. He highlighted the loss of manufacturing jobs. He laid out a very specific plan about what he's going to do with the trade policies that haven't benefited the American worker. Meanwhile, the president is trying to strengthen his ties, our ties at the moment, with globalist policies of NAFTA and our counterparts. We're going to have to wait and see how this plays out. But it looks like, if I'm not mistaken, Trump has actually set the stage, set the policy agenda for a sitting president.